Everyone wants to be stronger, not just physically, but in every part of life. But between confusing workout advice, complicated equipment, and trying to figure out nutrition, where does anyone even start? Well, to get stronger mentally and physically, go to Anytime Fitness. You'll get a personalized training, nutrition, and recovery plan, all customized to your body, your strength level, and your goals. You'll get expert coaching to optimize your results, anytime, anywhere, in the gym and on the Anytime Fitness app. And you'll get anytime access to 5,500 gyms worldwide, all with the right equipment to level up your strength gains and your life. So get started at AnytimeFitness.com. That's AnytimeFitness.com.
I think I'm kind of like a, I think people like my because I'm kind of a unique kind of character.
And I have the analytics.
I love like
You just see how games and possessions how they mean more. I'm not putting him on. I think the U.S. is going to obviously win.
Hello and welcome to a special episode of Nothing But Respect. My name is Harry Krinsky. I am joined by Patrick Redford. We have Max Friedlich on the show, who is a playwright, a writer, at one point admin of a 19-year-old artificial intelligence robot's Instagram, which we will get into. But most importantly, of course, to this basketball podcast, Max appears to be a basketball sicko. And I want to tell you how I learned this because it's patting myself on the back and my editorial prowess, but also I think it's a helpful framing for the interview, which is Max wrote this play, Job, which has got all kinds of critical acclaim and was an off-Broadway play, moved on to Broadway, very exciting stuff. He's also written a bunch of other things, and that nothing about that says basketball. But I remember when it moved over to Broadway, Max posted a video of Kobe Bryant saying his famous words, "Job's not done." And Max repurposed this as "Job's not done," running. It's going to go on Broadway. And then this kind of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander style aura edit, but with the actors in his play. And that piqued my interest of okay, something's going on with this guy and knowing basketball. I followed him on Instagram. I see he's posting about the Knicks on their run, but I'm still kind of well, anybody can post about the Knicks on their run. Upon doing a deeper dive, it definitely became clear that Max has the markings of a basketball sicko. A few things that tipped it off. One was in a bit of press for Job, Max appeared in a New York Knicks 90s striped polo with a hat that just said NBA playoffs on it. So that'll do it. You will also find a Walt Frazier posing with his mother deep in the Instagram, and a Max wearing an and one basketball hat. So the signs were there. Just before we started recording, Max pretty much showed us the last sign we needed to see, which is that he has the New York Knicks tattooed on his knuckles. So with all of that, Max, first of all, welcome to the show. And am I right? Are you a basketball sicko?
First off, let me say what an introduction. Yeah, I definitely would qualify myself as a basketball sicko. I've been trying, I guess this is me succeeding in being I've been trying to get that out there because I'm trying to get some tickets. If I could get in the MSG family, I feel like I could finesse my way into some Knicks tickets. But yeah, I've been trying to broadcast that as loudly as possible through the play promotion. I also really do think my sports fandom and my narrative media fandom are one and the same. I think that the older I get and the more long suffering I am as a Knicks fan, the more I am enamored of the narrative and what it means to my identity, rather than the part of me that enjoys guys jumping high. And I think that that's under discussed, right, with how sports fandom works, that I'm not man, I just love when guys can throw a ball 20 feet from a basket. But the idea that gesture and that ball going in at the right time means something is very avant-garde theater to me. And I don't know. I think they're one and the same. And I also want to push that narrative. If you're into theater, get into basketball. Or sports in general. If you're into sports, get into theater.
See, I think you are the right person to make this point, not because you've written a play. And the K in your knuckle tattoo does stand for Knicks, right? Just to clarify.
It does, yeah.
Well, the three of us, the thing we all have in common is that the teams we cheer for sucked Mondo ass during our formative years. I'm a Kings fan. Harry's a Warriors fan, so he's recently sort of lost his bona fides there. But I think that like this sense of like watching it because it exists and is there rather than like watching to see your boys go out and perform and win. Like, I think you are not going to have that if you grew up as like a Celtics fan or whatever, and you just expect that like the point is victory rather than process. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I do think, I mean, you have to be a romantic or to like the 2007, 2008 Knicks, as you have said, you have to be like a complete, like, romantic about the ancillary characters of the sport, because
Absolutely.
The main guys are only going to let you down. Like they're going to be Stephon Marbury and miss most of that season or whatever. So what was the, like, you have mentioned that 2007, 2008 team was important to you. Is this like a specific moment in your age? Like, why did this team kind of capture your imagination?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't have any siblings, and my dad is not a big sports guy. And I think on a whim, we got gifted some tickets to the Knicks that year, and they lost to the Jason Kidd Nets by 1. It was 101 to 100.
Are they doing like a first to 100 free Taco Bell promotion? Because I'm not even joking. They did that at Warriors games. I used to love that.
I think this was the Knicks have never really been on that as a franchise.
True.
They're not really collabing with fast food as much, which they should, absolutely. But I think it was like Mitch Richmond or someone, I want to say, who like tipped in the game winner at the buzzer. And I had never felt such like collective despair in New York. And it was really this growing up. I was born in 1994. The era that I came of age in New York, you really have this sense of like, oh man, you just missed it. Like this was just like, by the time I was 15 or 16, it was like the DIY, East Williamsburg, Bushwick, Williamsburg music scene was already starting to like normeify, and it's like, oh dude, like,
I like this. You just missed it all. Like you missed LCD Sound System, you missed Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, exactly. Like you missed the best year of the Knicks. Like you missed when like the East Village was real, all this. And it was this one sphere where I feel like I could channel like New York underdogdom. Like the Knicks remain, it's why like I have like this weird, stupid, like dumb, genuine hipster, parentheses, pejorative attitude around like the Knicks being good a little bit, where I'm like, I kind of don't know how to act, because it's this one place where New York is undervalued and sort of undersold. And like I grew up 12 blocks from the Garden. So it was also like, this is like, I'm going in my neighborhood essentially to like, to watch this like bad, shitty thing. And it was the one sphere where New York was bad. And it was like, I really connected to that and sort of glommed onto that.
I love the idea of having like a moving sort of life affirming experience as you watch Ronaldo Balkman go like 3 for 12 from the field. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, when we brought Ronaldo Balkman and Jared Jeffries back for like multiple stints, you're like, that's where you're like, damn, there's some real depraved shit happening here. Like we drafted Ronaldo Balkman, I'm pretty sure. And then like, we were like, we gotta get this guy back.
Have not seen enough of though. There's something to this. Like, I think if you talk to fans who have followed their team for like 20, 25 years or whatever, the stuff they like is not like, oh, remember when he won that first round playoff series? It's
No.
like, remember Jason Thompson? Like, that guy sucked. He was so cool, but he was ours, you know?
Totally, 100%. No, I mean, 100%. I think I actually, it's funny that you guys are aligned with these teams in that way. Like, pre-Steph, I was definitely, and because of the David Lee connection,
Right, which we'll talk about, yeah.
I definitely had an affinity for the pre-Steph Warriors, and then obviously had to let that go.
Right.
But I've always felt a kinship with the Kings for that reason, even though it's like, it feels so not right to be like, oh, New York and Sacramento, like we have something in common, you know?
Greta Gerwig.
I literally was, fuck. You got to beat me to it.
I think you beat everyone to it.
I have one small thing about this era because we were also talking before about being terminally online, Max. And do you happen to remember a sort of briefly viral probably like 2010, 2011 rap song about Steve Novak?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that guy went to my high school, and I was like, much like we'll get into, you are the guy behind Lil Michaela, and in certain ways, he was the guy who created this. He just was like this sort of short, very kind, funny Jewish guy who loved.
You need to say that, but yeah. Goes without saying.
Who loved Steve Novak and made this song, and it kind of like went sort of like early blog / YouTube viral. And now
Getting picked up on like video gum and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. He works in the NBA now. He's a scout. Yeah.
Do you think because of that?
Yeah, he knew what he was looking at.
He clearly knew what he was like. He foretold the pace and space era.
I like the idea that he's like just going around the NBA scouting like the most Steve. He's like, he like could be something.
Yeah, he's just salivating over Concanipple.
Yeah,
he's writing like an internal white paper that like the reason the Thunder won is because of Chet Holmgren's ability to replicate Steve Novak on both ends of the court,
but taller. Yeah, he's the Wemby of Steve Novak's. What is your? You mentioned. Is being terminally online part of your basketball fandom? Like, what is your sort of basketball media diet? And maybe how has it changed in let's say the Lil Michaela 2019, 2020 era versus now?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've oscillated between the East and West Coast, not in a we're functionally bi-coastal way, and like as in I've moved between the places.
Right.
And I definitely engage with the Knicks more passionately when I'm living in Los Angeles, because they come on here at 4 p.m.
Right.
Which is a perfect time for a differently employed individual like myself to watch basketball. 4 to 6 is sort of a dead time in anyone's workday.
Yep.
When I've had more traditional, 9 to 5 jobs, or as they functionally are in Los Angeles, 10 to 6. I've around 4 is like when things really start to stop or slow down. So I get to watch more games living here. There's also this there's this part, this is a real tangent, but like, I think it's deeply relevant. There's this part in Say Nothing, the Patrick Reed and Keefe book about Northern Ireland, that I'm really obsessed with because I think it has taught me something about my own New Yorker identity. But he talks about the Unionists in Northern Ireland and how they're like more British than any British person has ever been. Like they have like pictures of the fucking Queen and like drink tea and like, love England. And, I think like American Zionists are like this too, right? Like they love Israel like more than like any Israeli person could ever love Israel.
Uh-huh.
Leaving New York, like I've had this like unionist this thing of like when I'm in Los Angeles, I'm much more like I'm from New York, in New York when I'm usually now if I'm there, I'm staying at my parents' house, which is again 12 blocks from Madison Square Garden. I'm not like, man, I'm from fucking New York. You're like, you know, there's a great Knicks, the West Coast Knicks at 33 Taps in Silver Lake. Great Knicks fan community. There's always at least 2 to 3 guys, and sometimes whole families watching those games. So it's definitely being on the West Coast has definitely like forced me to work harder for my fandom, and I think that has deepened it a bit.
Well, first thing, the phrase instead of say nothing, say Bing Bong is like shooting through my head. But the other thing is,
yeah, that bit about like, and I think in that book he also talks about how the like American Irish, like whatever the opposite of the unionist is, community in Boston is like more Irish than like Irish guys in Dublin.
Yeah, 100%, which is super interesting as like an identity rule that seems to be ubiquitous around the world.
Yeah, it's like you have to not like, it's like you don't need to create that like identity for yourself if you're in the middle of it. Like it's like performed affinity sort of. Can I ask you to engage in a little more New York exceptionalism? As someone who has never been into MSG, but like is a big League Pass person, like the crowds in that building, like it just has like a different sound quality than like anywhere else. And like the Bing Bong thing and just this like idea of going outside of the arena and then 5,000 people are taking front facing camera videos, but like in a cool way. Like I feel very, very jealous of that. Like where are you at with like the larger state of Knicks fandom in 25, 26?
You know, it's interesting. Like, I think all are welcome for sure. I was talking to a big Celtics fan at a wedding. It was a very funny conversation. This was like the afters of a wedding. It was like most people were, you know, doing drugs in the bathroom. This is like 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my friend who has an MFA in fiction and my other friend who's like a musician and therapist. Yeah. So it was like it was not a sports heavy crowd. And me and this one guy like locked in about basketball, and like people kept sitting where we were sitting and then like every 2 minutes, like leaving.
Just yipped out being like, did you guys see Russillo talk about
exactly
the Revolutionary War?
He was saying that like as a Boston Celtics fan who lives in New York, like he was getting texts being like, yeah, fuck you, like suck my dick from people who were like, don't watch basketball, you know? And like that I take some exception to. Like I think, and there's a broader point to be made about like how moving to New York or like quote being a New Yorker is. You can't gatekeep it to the extent like my dad is from New Jersey, my mom is from Philadelphia. I was born in New York, and I'm not going to then run around being like, fucking transplants, you know, like it's a city that is designed to be transplanted into. I do think like if I moved to Toledo, Ohio, and 3 months in was like, yo, real Toledo heads, like people would be like, shut up, you know? But like you can't do that in New York. Like, and everyone, I think what the Bing Bong shit and like that connotes to me that is a little negative is this like endless memification of New York, where it's like I didn't grow up saying Bing Bong, you know, like
that wasn't in the curriculum.
There's this weird like now like sort of these like authenticity tests that the internet has created to like be like, you know, you didn't grow up in New York if you didn't whatever. Again, sorry, we're going to tangent for a second, but like in 2015, Tasty, which is like a now defunct, like I think it was maybe a branch of BuzzFeed.
I remember that. Yeah. I've cooked a few Tasty. I got Tasty briefly got into creating physical cooking appliances, including a 1-pot boiler that was connected to the Tasty app, which I did not purchase, but I was kind of curious about.
I mean, that's the kind of dystopian. If Ottolenghi could make that, I would be all over it.
Imagine getting Alzheimer's from the like Teflon Forever chemicals from the Tasty app connected pan, like the most undignified way to die.
You get the specific Alzheimer's where you exist in the Skibbity toilet universe.
But you would be getting the same kind of specific Alzheimer's as members of the Tasty community, and that is important. And that is the kind of app that can create not only shareholder value but social value.
But sorry, we got you off. Okay.
No, not at all. So Tasty made this video that was like how to make a chopped cheese. This is 2015, and someone else, like a Black culture critic, responded to it on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, being like, this is this weird gentrification and appropriation of this thing that is specific to largely Harlem and specifically East Harlem. And then everyone did the exact thing that she said not to do, which was everyone started being like, yeah, you're not from New York. If you didn't grow up. And I felt really weird at first because I was like, I grew up in Chelsea and went to high school in the East Village. And I was like, it's very, I was like, oh, maybe this is like, it's like an uptown thing. It's like a Harlem thing. Maybe it's like a Black thing or a white thing, whatever it is. And then like my friend who grew up in West Harlem was like, I had never heard of this. And but then like my friend who grew up in Ozone Park was like, yeah, we had chopped cheese, whatever. The beauty of New York is you can have all of these rarefied experiences, that are all valid. Now, in tandem with like the side talk, Bing Bong, whatever, the culture of like being like, this is a New York iconic thing, we've blended this incredibly diverse, not only demographically diverse, but like diversity of experience place into this thing where everything kind of fits into this mold. And that's my problem a little bit with the garden selfie video thing, is I do think it informs this idea that like New York is this one thing. And the best thing about New York is that it's a billion different things. That said, I went to the Hollywood Bowl the other night, which is roughly the capacity of the Garden. I think it's like 17,000 compared to the Garden's like 19 point something. Mm-hmm. And seeing how long it took for everyone to get out and get into their cars, I'm like, it's so crazy that the Knicks, I never thought about how Knicks games end and everyone is just like on 6th Avenue. So insane. Such a public safety hazard, realistically. If the Knicks ever win, like, oh my God, it's really good. I'll be there participating. The FBI, if you're listening to this, like, arrest me now. I'm gonna be doing bad stuff 100%. I'm also really nervous that it's going to be like in the year, like every year our government and the world gets worse. Last year I was really anxious that the year that Trump got reelected was going to be the best year of my life because I thought the Knicks were going to make the NBA finals.
Of course, yeah.
And I would have to say the year of our Lord 2025 was the best year of my life. We elected an autocratic dictator but we lost to the Thunder in 4 games.
Well, instead it's going to be 2026 when the Trumpish debasements continue, but you beat the Rockets in 6 games, and Mike Brown is ritually thrown into the East River as thousands of people chant. It's going to be beautiful.
I like that you said East River because we would have to carry him quite a ways from the Garden.
Well, that's for the side talk. That's the side talk iShowSpeed live stream that will be sort of like parading him across town.
Yeah.
Okay. One other you in a interview around Job said something that I thought was interesting as it relates to basketball, which was Job is really about our modern relationship with labor. First and foremost, it's a play about how millennials and Gen Z see work and see their role in the world. We have talked on this show, and other people have talked about the kind of like the changing makeup of an NBA player. And there's all kinds of ways that they're changing. One of which is that they are all Gen Z now, pretty much, or Gen Z or millennial, folks, and they have this unique job. And the kind of the most common place that people sink their teeth into around like the changing relationship from NBA players to their job is the conversation around team loyalty, right? Is LeBron wrong for leaving Cleveland or whatever? What other, as a person who has spent a lot of time thinking about these generational shifts in jobs, what have you thought about how this has trickled down to or trickled horizontally to sports or the NBA or anything like that?
I mean, I see it as like employees like becoming closer, embodying the attitude of employers, where like I think top guys seem to be seeing themselves, rightfully so, as an entity, as a business. I remember when Anthony Davis trademarked his unibrow.
Yeah. Before he even got into the league.
Yeah, I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean? Like, and you're like, no, because it was the era of like, I think that was slightly pre-Linsanity, but like, I might be getting my years crossed, but it was like, it was starting, something would happen in the NBA and it would be like a thing, you know, like to the Steve Novak rap of it all. It's like things would happen, figures would emerge, and then there would be like supplementary media where someone else was profiting off of your likeness or your
like
whatever.
mimetic value.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, you know, I think the changes in college sports have really informed this, that kids are seeing themselves as like brands younger than younger, and they're being treated like brands. So I think that relationship, I don't think it's, you know, all that differentiated. I sometimes wonder, you know, if there are certain NBA players that are afraid to say the sort of quiet part out loud, as it were, and if there are young NBA players who are engaging in this, like, oh, you know, I'm taking a mental health, you know, like I'm fascinated by like forever what's gone on with Zion, because it's like he's someone who like I've been watching since he was like 14, you know, like really one of the stars of Kyrie Irving was the first person, like first high schooler that I was like, I'm very aware of this person, including like fascinatingly and like thinking about like this micro generation of people who didn't get to capitalize. I'm thinking about Seventh Woods. I don't know if you remember Seventh Woods, but he I think ended up winning a championship with North Carolina as like an 11th man. But like when he was in middle school, you know, we were like, this guy's the fucking future, and then didn't end up being Zion Williamson. Anyway.
Something I was thinking about there is how much SGA is like exactly the right person for this moment. And I think something that a lot of like older head NBA fans will like sort of approach making explicit but never actually say is like, I think they feel that he is somehow like betraying what a superstar should do by like being so happy in Oklahoma City specifically. Yeah. Where there's almost this idea that like he's maximizing his own like personal brand, but is like somehow like refusing to do it in the biggest stage, or like sort of submit to this kind of like Jordan era hangover of like, you have to win for the big team kind of thing. Like, I feel like maybe people, I mean, they don't like him for like a lot of reasons, but I wonder if like there's this like repulsion that he's like happy there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. There's also still this prevailing attitude that you would want to function. I'll say two things. One, the only big market, like sort of writ large, that I really understand someone being like, I got to force my way into this situation is playing in Los Angeles. Yes, and
no, you're right.
Being an adjunct professor at UC Davis. No, I mean like LA, because like you live in a mansion, you know, and like you hang out with celebrities, and it's definitely good for brand deals, whatever. When people are like, when there are Knicks fans who still get on this thing of like, how could you not want to play in New York? I'm like, well, first of all, you live in Larchmont.
Right.
You know, like you don't live in New York. Mm-hmm. Like Deuce McBride bought a condo in Chelsea where my parents still live. And I'm like, that's crazy, bro. Are you taking the one? Like, you know, everyone else lives in Westchester,
right?
You know, and I think there's an indication there. The only other large market thing, again, as I get older, where I'm like, okay, I get wanting to play in Florida, right, where the taxes are different.
Yeah, sure.
But no, there's definitely this rejection of, you know, being happy or satiated in a small market. To me, like, it sounds ideal. There's no distractions. Everyone likes you. You know, like. Is my perception of it. There's a very funny, Spike Lee was talking about the NBA being rigged when the Pacers beat the Knicks, and I loved the idea that the NBA was conspiring to get an Oklahoma City, Indiana NBA Finals. It's like not what they wanted at all. But there's this idea that like small markets should never be winning. No one should be happy there. And yeah, there's they're taking there's something imbalanced when it's not New York or like Chicago, which is so crazy because they've been so bad for so long.
Yeah, the Shea, I agree with much of what you were saying. The Shea thing is interesting too. Like he doesn't seem to want to. He is comfortable playing the role of the superstar as it relates to kind of like, I guess maybe like being really into fashion and kind of being in commercials and of course like being a star player. But he doesn't seem to be interested in playing into the kind of Jordan-esque, he's going to represent what we think a killer mindset superstar is supposed to be. Like, there's no stories about Shea being like an asshole or like, being like a sicko. Like stayed up all night taking 50,000 threes. Like, he just is like so good and has his, practice down, and it's this closed loop thing that we don't hear about. Whereas you some of these other older superstars, because they didn't get to control the narrative. Like if you get like even Melo or like a Vince Carter or Kobe, they were whether or not they were actually this, they were told that they were Jordan disciples. And now you get these people, who get to choose their own adventure. Shea's just like, I like fashion. I'm going to post these crazy Instagrams and get wild ass fits off. But pretty much other than that, I'm going to be like a regular guy. Totally. Or not a regular guy, but I
also think like with Shea, I mean, Westbrook got a ton of this. I also like, not to take it here, but I also think like there's a lot of like internalized like homophobia and sexism that like gets thrown these guys' way. Like particularly like Shea's a beautiful man, and he moisturizes and like has silky lips, and like has like and like wears outlandish outfits, and like people are like, there's something I hate about this guy. Like, can't put my finger on it. Like, I wish he would I wish he would kiss me. Like I always feel that with Shea or Westbrook, where it's like, he's got his nipples out through like a crop top or whatever, and people are like, I'm so angry about this. It's like, just process it, brother. Like, it's just we all get a little horny, at a beautiful man sometimes. That's fine. And I think that's the Shea element. He's not leaning into this grit and grind like, I'm covered in blood and I scream at people thing. He's like, I wanna.
He's like, I'm covered in Rick.
Yeah.
This is also, I think, why people like Ant so much, is like part of having like however many kids by however many, that's like a straight identitarian move almost. It's like 100%. He's like performing the like alpha male, like bad boy thing. So it's like, okay, we don't even have to worry that he might want to kiss me too.
That's really,
absolutely. He definitely doesn't want to kiss you. Shea, you're like, maybe, I don't know, right now we're at nowadays, like,
who's to say? Though, except he wouldn't. Well, maybe he could be a nowadays, but there's the other moral panic around the Thunder aren't getting fucked up enough after their championship.
Yeah, which is so.
That's awesome. As a scientist of the discourse, I love that type of shit.
Yeah.
Audible's romance collection has something to satisfy every side of you. When it comes to what kind of romance you're into, you don't have to choose just one. Fancy a dalliance with a duke, or maybe a steamy billionaire. You could find a book boyfriend in the city and another one tearing it up on the hockey field. And if nothing on this earth satisfies, you can always find love in another realm. Discover modern rom-coms from authors like Lily Chu and Ali Hazelwood, the latest romantasy series from Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros, plus Regency favorites like Bridgerton and Outlander. And of course, all the really steamy stuff. Your first great love story is free when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about little Michaela and your journey there, but before we get you out of here, there's a lot to say about it. Like and there's a lot that really ties in to this conversation, but let me set it up by first asking you to set it up, which is who, for those who don't know, who is Lil Miquela, and kind of how did you get involved in the world of Lil Miquela? And then maybe my third question is, and why years later did you decide to write about it for ID Magazine last week?
Yes, totally. Up top, I want to say there was this very funny comment where someone was like, he's just writing about this for clout. I want to be so clear. I'm writing about it for money. It wasn't that much money, but I also am like, oh, this will be good for my digital footprint. And
I mean, he's writing about it for clout, almost gets into this like skitsed out thing that you dive into, which is like
100%, where you're like,
kinda for money, like I'm trying to fucking write this thing so I can write more things. I don't know.
I mean, it relates to the again, homophobia of like being like afraid of the very thing that you want. You know, like I think so many people in the comments forever are afraid that they're that they are clout goblins who just want to be adjacent to something that can be deemed exciting or famous or whatever. No, I mean, I think, and I thought about this notion of clout a lot when I worked there, because it was this incredibly like exciting, emergent, novel thing. So I also want to preface by saying, we talked a little bit off mic about, these emergent, like, AI figures that people are going to be trying to introduce into culture. I think it's very important that we not say who is Lil Miquela, but what is Lil Miquela? Because Lil Miquela is not a real lady. It's a project, and it was also a Sequoia Capital backed startup, now owned by something called Dapper Labs, which is I think they also did NBA Top Shot.
Yeah, they made NBA Top Shot, for which I'm getting a class action settlement from. So shout out to them.
What'd you call?
I want to hear a lot more about that. But anyway, so I had newly moved to Los Angeles. I had agents through playwriting already. So I was getting set up on what is called in Hollywood, the general meeting.
Oh yeah.
So someone reads something of yours, they work at a production company or a studio or whatever. They want to meet you. What is confusing is the degree to which they want to meet you varies. I met at HBO when I was 19. Spoiler alert. Do not work for HBO. But like when you're 19 and like someone wants to talk to you, you're like, oh, they must be interested. No, that's not how it works. So I had this rare, very productive general meeting with this woman named Gina Gamel, who's very nice, who is Riley Keough's producing partner, the actress Riley Keough. And I had been like making memes and like just making like dumb things, I think just as a way to communicate to my home friends more. I was, renting a bedroom in a house from these like wonderful empty nesters, but it was like, I didn't even have roommates. I had like people in their 60s, who like had their own lives. So I was incredibly lonely. And so I was making memes and sort of communicating on the internet that way. And I showed her a meme that I had made, and she was like, oh, you should meet my friend Trevor. He's doing this like art project. He has this like Instagram. She like couldn't really describe it. So I meet this guy, Trevor.
That's like us describing NBR. We're like, it's a project. It's basketball. Yeah. Okay, but keep going.
Yeah, you're like it's reshaping storytelling.
Don't worry about it.
Also, something we discussed off mic, but I also want to be clear. The guy who founded Lil Miquela, his name is Trevor McFedries. This is not, a lot of people were engaging with that article being like, this is some kind of reveal. You can look on the Lil Miquela Wikipedia page and find out who started Lil Miquela. So this guy, Trevor, who's sort of this jack of all trades guy, he was Swayze's DJ, and like, he was like one of the early employees at Spotify, and like had kind of made this career out of being like very early on things. He also ended up making a ton of money in crypto, I've learned. Just being early, understanding it, really diving in 2 feet first, I think is like his superpower as a guy.
I want to put a brief pin in Swayze, because Swayze has a long time been like an extreme kind of special interest fascination of mine. So we can't. We might even just need to talk about this later. But Swayze, to me, it's like the when you said Swayze, the alarm bell started going off.
I can't lie. When I learned this about him, I was like, "What is?" I did not know Swayze. Swayze did not maybe hit the East Coast in the same way, but
yeah.
Corona and Lime, I listen to every morning. But anyway, he was like, yeah, we have, I forget how he described it initially, honestly, but it was very innocuous, and I thought it was cool and novel. And he basically was like, we'll pay you, I think it was like $500 a month or something to come in once a week and consult on like the narrative side of this character that I'm building. And we worked out of this little apartment in the arts district, and it was very scrappy. Everyone was super nice. It didn't read startup. Everyone was also like so cool, and like had worked at Vice, it was like a movement director on music. Everyone was like, it just was like deeply steeped in like hype LA shit that also didn't feel like hype beast or like, LA transplanting. It felt like sort of lived in, at least to a transplant like myself. And then it was like Zach Fox is going to come in and like voice one of these characters. And I was a huge fan of Awful Records. And I was like, this is so tight. And Trevor had this idea. He was like, I want to do this splashy thing with this account. Sorry, I'll back up. The account is it's this brazenly fake looking character called Lil Michaela. And she's like, when I joined, she was like a girl about town in LA. And it sort of had the thing that was compounding interest in it was just a novelty factor. So she was like taking pictures with Diplo, and people were like, how does this girl who edits, people thought it was like a Gorillaz Damian Albarn relationship where it's like, there's this character. So everyone was asking, who is the girl behind Michaela? Who is this? Not knowing that there's the center is empty. Yeah, I won't even say like that it was Trevor. It was like, it was all of us, like we all worked there. This is like late 2017 when I started.
I do want, like, this is where I find that the story really is relevant now, because there is just like incredible seeds to what is today's sort of like fame apparatus, which is, it is all persona. And so this idea that going back to the guy being like, you're doing this all for clout, it's like there was something extremely prescient that I didn't at the time when I saw it. I was like, this is fucking stupid. I don't care about this. But I now see that it was laying the groundwork for maybe what was going on in LA at an earlier time, but just this obsession with persona.
I mean, Trevor, I think, had been a DJ. He had been he had managed this artist named Banks. He had executive produced an album for Azalea Banks, different Banks, and like worked with talent really intimately. And I think, as all sort of startup founders do, he like saw this problem that I'm sure this is not how he would say it, but that like real female artists have a lot of agency and like sometimes are late and sometimes don't want to do things. And I think the way it was pitched to, spoiler alert, getting a little ahead of myself, Sequoia Capital, was like, what if you had, and the way he did describe it was like, it was a decentralized Kardashian. So what if Kim or Kendall or Kylie could be in China and Portugal at the same time, on time, doing whatever brand deal we want them to do. So it was like, in this emergent influencer moment, it was like, well, what if instead of waiting for Jake and Logan Paul to pop out of rural Ohio, we could build our own Jake and Logan Paul, which is not how that works. Anyway, Trevor had this idea. He wanted to do something splashy that would like get attention on Michaela, but also he was really interested in transitioning this out from like an Instagram novelty place into like a metafictional story place. So being like, this is actually a character. We're not trying to pretend that it's a girl. The lore is she's this robot that escaped like robot sex slavery and was liberated by our metafictionally real company, which was called Brud. And then we implanted the memories of a real girl named Michaela Souza who died, who was a 19-year-old Brazilian American from Downey. So I started coming
I didn't
in.
know all that about that.
I started coming in every week and came on as a more full-time employee to run this story. And my title was like story lead. So we did this hack where we had this sort of alt-right coded character named Bermuda hack Michaela's Instagram and reveal to the world that Michaela was actually a robot. And that was like the pinnacle of me working there, was this like notes app apology essentially that I wrote that was like Michaela apologizing for for deceiving people. And then it got, for a second, it was really, really interesting. We also did this post that I also wrote about like how she wasn't going to identify as like a woman or a person of color anymore, being like, those things were chosen for me by a company, and being like, that is metafictionally, that drew from my own discomfort working there, of being like, it's a little weird that like, again, and it was also so hard to parse, right? Because it's like the two founders are a white woman and a black dude, and it's like, okay, so they're kind of Michaela, but like I write a lot of her captions, and then like, you know, we've got this animator compositor dude who's from India, you know, like, and it's like, there's,
and she's
like,
not real. So
right.
like,
and there's this Iranian American woman who like helps with all the brands, you know, it's like, so like, who is to say, it just like, it muddled all of the conversation around like identity and who can say what, and also being like, it's not real. Like,
and
what
it's
is
like a business, like the incentive.
like,
yeah.
Is this like a television show? It's like, if I wrote for the Fresh Prince, you might gripe with that in ways that are like rightfully so, but like Andy Borowitz created, like, you know, like that's created by a white guy. Like no one, he's not saying I am the Fresh Prince,
right.
You know, like, so it was all muddied. And, but I was really, at the point that I was most stoked on it was this idea of metafictional storytelling and this idea of cross-platform storytelling, of being like, so to follow the larger Michaela narrative, you need to see her on Twitter and on this and on that, and that's all going to inform this like larger lore. And then very quickly she started getting bigger. So the hack happens, it blows up. The cut follows it in real time. She's on CNN, like in the New York Times, like, and then through that, TechCrunch writes this thing being like, hey, this is actually a Sequoia Capital backed startup valued at $30 million. There's a thing in the ID article where it's not a misquote. Later, I think a year later, it would be valued at 125 million. When I worked there, it was at 30 million. And from there, the team expanded. We moved into nicer offices. We started talking about OQRs or whatever, you know, quarterly, you know, up until that point, like I was we also had this male character named Blocko who Jack Fox.
The names are special.
Yeah, phenomenal. They're still out there. You can look them up. Blocko, that Zach Fox was the voice of, and we would like Twitch stream with him and write YouTube videos. And we had this ongoing joke that he wanted to fuck a printer because he's a robot. And it's like, he would want to fuck a printer and he was trying to get a printer pregnant. And this lady like came up to my desk one day with Trevor, and he was like, oh, this is Max. Like, you know, he was like story lead, and you know, now he's doing this other stuff. And what are you working on today? And I was like, oh, like we're doing this thing about how much Blocko wants to like fuck our printer. And she kind of made a face and then walked away. And he was like, all good. Like that was our Sequoia Capital. Like that was like the VC. You know, like that's fine. But yeah, I mean, and then to balance, we stopped really being able to balance a lot of story stuff with the brand deals. Part of that is the limits of metafictional storytelling. It's that you can't really tell a centralized, if you go on Michaela's Instagram today, I promise there's a comment that's like, are you a robot? And it's like, we covered that in the story in 2018.
Right.
You know, so it's very hard to advance the narrative. And also it was just hard to be like, all right, she's on the cover of King Kong magazine. She's supposed to be like in a depressive spiral. How do we get her to, you know, tell the story while also integrating this brand thing? Super interesting. time. It stopped being interesting after a while. By the time, I would say the back 4 or 5 months that I worked there, it was very unclear like who was in charge of like Michaela. I knew it like definitely wasn't me, but it was like there was a creative director and then there was someone doing her voice, but I was still like working on the story. So it went from being like, do you want to write Instagram captions for this person, to you have this sort of oddly ill-defined tech job. And then I was also like, for a while, I was really tasked with like growing the male character. So anyway, it all sort of fell apart for me. I started being like, I don't know if I want to work here full time. They were like, that's cool. You're going to like make less money. As an arrogant 24-year-old, I was like, that's not going to work. And they were like, well, then you are fired.
That's like a fascinating journey. And honestly, I think all of our listeners would really get something out of the story. It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's super, thank you. It was a super duper interesting time that I think really opened me up to trying to see the internet as, as a collection of companies and data centers, and not this like weird thing that like floats in the air, but like a thing that people in a boardroom fund.
And to your point about it, like not really being interesting anymore, like the sort of interesting like subtext and like metafictional readings you can have, like all that shit is just text now. Like the comments of our latest posts are all these just other AI influencers and singers right. being like, do you support my work, Lo Michaela?
Right.
All right, Max, we've taken up enough of your time already. Thank you so much for coming on. I would love to have you on again to talk. There's honestly so much more meat on this bone around Persona and how that has moved into NBA sports spaces and the ways that has worked and not worked. But do you, other than this piece, is there anything to plug? What should people be checking out?
Yeah, follow me on Instagram. Get my cloud up.
Mm-hmm. You're the little guy in the Bing Bong video, right? That's you.
Yeah, that's right. I've gotten taller. No, I mean I don't know. Check out the play. I get a little money every time someone buys the play. It's called Job. It's by me, Max Friedlich. It's available on Concord Theatricals. Google that. Read it. There's all the spicy tea in there about working for Michaela and being a Knicks fan. All that is in there. But cool. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for joining us. That was great.